for joining us on the Right of Way Report, a podcast by Pike Off OTA. You can join us here every Monday morning at 10 a.m., where we will bring you updates on legislation, litigation, and landowner information.
Hello.
Hey there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. We missed everyone, so we decided we were going to go live randomly on a Wednesday afternoon. We hope we're actually going live somewhere.
Thursday. Aren't we on Thursday?
Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, it's Thursday. You're right. I don't even know what day it is.
Thursday afternoon. Yep. Nothing like midweek. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been on, so this is good. Good to get back and get everybody updated on what's been going on, because there's been a lot going on.
There's been a lot going on. I'm just checking all the feeds to make sure we're on. I see it on, you see it on Rumble? We're on YouTube. Aha, we are. We're good.
Okay.
Okay, we're on Rumble. YouTube.
Sweet.
Looks like we have two visitors from somewhere. Maybe Facebook.
It might be us.
X. I don't know. It's hard to see. It's hard to see from here. We're live. We're live. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we're live.
So
Let's go.
So we know it's Thursday afternoon. That's good. It's finally feeling like summer. We've been doing graduation things. Your son graduated from college, and it's almost the end of school, and it's been busy.
It has been very busy. And your kids have been in track and doing all kinds of sports and
Yeah.
doing really well, setting records.
Yeah, going to the state meet this Saturday up at Western Heights, so that'll be exciting.
That is exciting. Very good.
And soccer's almost over for one, and not even close to being over for the other, so we're still, I think it's like a year-round thing. You just keep going. Never stop.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Never stops. That's for sure.
And speaking of never stops, Pike Off OTA and the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation never stop trying to end the abomination, which is the east-west connector and the southern extension through Cleveland County. And the OTA never stops trying to build it. And so we're here to talk to you about a few things that happened towards the end of the legislative session. Well, we actually don't know when the end of the legislative session is going to be, because the senators have refused to show up for the last week and a half, roughly. I lose track of time in May, to be honest, because it's so busy at the university. But I think they're ending today, according to the news station that my husband heard today. So that today's their last day. But the House of Representatives is still working till the 22nd of May. So we're still watching one of our bills and hoping that it doesn't get slipped through in the last minute and signed into law, because then the OTA gets everything they want. So we are, I would say, kind of nervous, because most of the people that can help us stop the bill are out campaigning because they're up for re-election and they have some people running against them. And so I don't know, Kelly, it's very frustrating up at the legislature. It's hard to get the people's word in and and our wishes heard, to be honest. And we don't ask for much, like just stay away from us and don't take our property. I mean, I don't know. Just seems like common sense, but
It does.
you know, they're all about posturing. We're going to reduce property taxes. And then they put it together a bill that reduces your homestead property tax from 3 to 1.75%, and everybody else is from 5 to 3%, and then let it die. They don't even hear it. I don't know. Feels like just fake clown world. And
It is fake.
yeah, but you know, leading up into our next topic, all the agencies that want more money from we the people get their bills passed through in record time, like 2 weeks. And so we wanted to bring to your attention the Senate Bill 1309. And 1309 was written, or not, wasn't written by, it was run by Senator Yeck of the Senate and Representatives Johns, Representative Hill, and Representative Crosswhite Hader, four of our favorite legislators in the House and the Senate. So Senator Yek is the transportation chair who blocked every single one of our bills. Representative Johns is the chair of the Transportation Committee who blocked 99% of our bills. Representative Brian Hill is leaving the legislature this year and running for lieutenant governor, and he's the guy who ran the unfriendly amendment to Senate Bill 80 17 minutes before the committee was to be heard, and he gave the OTA every single thing they wanted, plus a bridge over the Arkansas River in the vicinity of Bixby. And then Representative Crosswhite Hader, who spent 5 minutes of her speaking time on the House debating whether the USPS and certified mail was an appropriate way for the OTA to contact us. So, you know, they have their priorities straight for sure. And then they wrote this, or they carried this bill, they carried the water for the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. And it is to give them $20 million more of our taxpayer money for unrestricted spending on whatever they want because they don't have enough money as it is. And this bill created in the state treasury fund is known as the Rebuilding Oklahoma Access and Driver Safety Fund. The acronym is ROADS, ROADS. And it is a continuing fund, not subject to fiscal year limitations, and it shall consist of all appropriations and transfers made by the legislature. So what is happening is they are funding this to the tune of, it was $80 million per year, and they are increasing it to $100 million per year. And it is allocated to the Department of Transportation for making any required payments for principal, interest, or other costs of borrowing with respect to the obligations. So first they have to pay any debt, and then they can use the rest of it to do maintenance and things like that. But just for all you that haven't read the bill yet, the passenger rail receives a fixed allocation of $2 million per year already. That's not what the bill does, but that just happened already. The public transit systems receive $3 million per year through a revolving fund. I got to be honest with you, like $2 million sounds like a lot, but that's the reason why Central Oklahoma doesn't have transit system, because the highway cartel is holding the transit people out of the game. So they destroyed Union Station, they destroy a lot of the railways around the state purposely so that they can put in more highways and be car centric. And that's been happening since the 60s and 70s. But so let's talk more about 1309. So I had some notes about 1309 because it's really long and convoluted, and it's kind of hard to understand what's really going on. So the benefits, like I said, were the passenger rail, the public transportation, public transit systems, and ODOT. So the state revenue, our income tax, gets redirected. It goes into the roads fund. The debt gets paid first, and then ODOT can use what's left to pay for maintenance, expansion, and matching federal dollars. So if the feds came in and said, or the ODOT says to the feds, we have a project that's going to cost $12 million, and then the feds will say, yeah, okay, we'll match it. I'll give you $6 million. You have to match it with $6 million. They could use this fund for that. So it strengthens ODOT's funding certainty. It locks in debt repayment as the top priority. But what it doesn't do is change governance or oversight, and it doesn't constrain how projects are selected. And this is the key, right? Because you want ODOT to be very judicious on their 8-year plan, and you want them to fix what needs to be fixed and focus on the safety and fixing our 12,000 center lane miles of road in Oklahoma, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly. But what happens when the Oklahoma Department of Transportation uses those funds to connect state roads to the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority turnpikes. So is that even a proper way to use our taxpayer money? And the statutes are quite clear that anything that touches a turnpike must be paid for by revenue bonds. So why is the Oklahoma Department of Transportation carrying the water for OTA on several projects that we'll show you in a second when I finish with this 1309? So you probably didn't know that they got $20 million. It's already been signed into law by Governor Stitt. Actually, it says signed into law without a signature, so I don't even know how that works. I thought you always needed a signature. But that's how, Kelly, that's how the bridge over the Arkansas River in the vicinity of Bixby bill got put into law. It just it just automatically went to law that the governor didn't even have to do anything. So, you know, it's who you know. So just so you know that the Oklahoma Department of Transportation does not issue general obligation bonds because that would require a vote of the people in Oklahoma, and they don't do anything. They don't want to do anything when we have to vote on it. And that would be backed by the full faith and credit of the state, and that's not how ODOT financing works. But what they do take out is Oklahoma Capital Improvement Authority bonds. That's OCIA issue bonds. So the state, via ODOT appropriations like the roads fund, they agree to make payments. And then ODOT uses the proceeds for highway projects. So legally, they're called appropriation-backed bonds or lease purchase agreements. And they're not technically state debt. And that avoids constitutional limits. But in reality, they function very similarly because the state's expected to pay. So these OCIA bonds, ODOT also uses federal credit programs like Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act loans, that's TIFIA, and they're low interest federal loans, and they're repaid with state revenues like the roads fund. And oh, you know what happened on the Gilcrease, Kelly? The OTA had ODOT take out a TIFIA loan to pay $50 million on the Gilcrease, which is a turnpike, and it's not supposed to use federal or state dollars. But you know, when you're the OTA, it doesn't really matter what you do because you can do whatever you want. And then, so for grant anticipation, sometimes the future federal highway funds are leveraged up front and then debt is repaid from expected federal reimbursements. So ODOT funding does come from federal highway dollars and state appropriations like the roads fund. So the Senate Bill 1309 increases the guaranteed state revenue flowing into roads. And again, that revenue is pledged first to debt service. So in practice, ODOT relies on structured financing mechanisms, and it commits future state revenues to pay for today's projects. And so bills like Senate Bill 1309 keep that gravy train running. And you know, I don't really have I mean, we have to pay for our infrastructure somewhere, but I have a real problem when my tax money that they keep taking more and more out of each year is used inefficiently and against the law. Like I don't want my taxpayer money to go to do anything with turnpikes. And
it shouldn't.
It shouldn't, and it really bothers me. The Indian Hills project really bothers me. So they spent ODOT spent $16 million of their money, the state money, to buy that right of way. And we already know they didn't spend federal money because if they had used federal money, they would have had to do a NEPA study, an Environmental Protection Act study, and they didn't. So $16 million of our state taxpayer money went to pay for that right of way around Indian Hills when Timber Creek Church made a couple $1 million based on Gene McCowan's tip-off from the Oklahoma Turnpike, Oklahoma Transportation Commission, allegedly. I think that there's so much bad things that can happen when you give a state agency more money without asking them to put more guardrails up. And so this 1309 just like slipped through passing it. And the only reason we got tipped off is because one of the representatives who's very good about checking out what bills say texted Kelly, and then Kelly texted me. So I'm up there reading on my phone what this bill is all about. And we just gave ODOT another $20 million per year because they say they don't have enough money. But then what we're going to talk about next is, but they just took $12 million of that and put it towards a Muskogee Turnpike project. And they're taking $33 million and putting it towards the East-West Connector project. So tell me why, again, that ODOT is carrying the water for the OTA, who is supposed to be 100% funded through revenue bonds. I don't know what I want to say about 1309, but I think it could be, this is a bad idea because it strengthens the financing pipeline without adding accountability, project selection reform, or debt limits. So just like the OTA has no debt limit, ODOT has no debt limit. So they keep expanding transportation commitments by pledging future revenue while calling it infrastructure investment without forcing a hard public conversation about total debt exposure, project necessity, or whether maintenance is being crowded out by expansion. And as a civil engineer, I'll talk to you, like, their money is available for expansion all the time, but very few dollars are expended on or put towards maintenance. And that's why we have such bad urban sprawl, because of the funding mechanisms. And when you talk to Chuck Marone and Strong Towns and you'll ask him, well, how do you stop the system? And he'll just say, you have to implode it, because it's not sexy to give money for maintenance. But yet we have all these maintenance liabilities. We have bridges that are literally falling down. You see on the news. You have roadways that don't have shoulders. You have all these existing infrastructure that was built and then abused by all the developers who develop way, way out. They have to bring infrastructure to, and then there's no way 50 years down the road, pun intended, to pay to fix these roads. So they just build something new. And if you want to see what that looks like, you go to the Sooner Mall and you look how empty that is, or you drive around the Kilpatrick and see all the empty commercial buildings with the miles and miles of parking lots with weeds coming up through. Why aren't we fixing those places instead of running over virgin farm and ranch land where we grow our food with concrete? And so I was disappointed that 1309 passed without anybody bringing up the accountability part. Like, okay, I'll give you $20 million more, but you have to tell me how you're going to spend it, and that you will spend it wisely on projects that are sorely needed for the Oklahoma citizens. So Kelly pulled up this State Highway 51 project near Coweta in along the Muskogee Turnpike. And we know about this because one of our supporters is having her home pretty much destroyed and alienated kind of right in the middle of the service road to get on and off of the turnpike. And then the new alignment of 272nd or 273rd Street. And ODOT, since it's an ODOT project, ODOT is in charge of the right-of-way, and they have to use the Uniform Relocation Act. And so they've asked them to totally buy them out, and ODOT has said no. And so when we'll zoom in on where they live, and you'll see that they literally have a road on three sides of them within feet of their house. And Kelly just showed me this picture this morning, and I was pretty blown away with the fact that a state agency with the power of eminent domain wouldn't do the ethical thing and buy these people out, but that's not how it worked. So, Kelly, do you want to talk more about this particular one?
Yeah, so as Amy was speaking about earlier, ODOT came to our legislators and asked for more money to be appropriated for them to use as, maintenance and repairs. And they asked for 20 million per year in perpetuity. And I just want you guys to know that this project right here does not even appear on the Access Oklahoma website. You pull up Access Oklahoma and it's not there at all. It doesn't appear. This is 100% an ODOT project. It is on ODOT's 8-year construction work plan. And ODOT is paying for part of it. the federal government apparently is paying for part of it, according to the STIP page. And I believe so far we can only find $16 million worth of money allocated for this project right here. But as you can see, this is what they're going to do. They're actually going to remove a bridge that's kind of it's right next to where they currently have a bridge there, but they're going to build a brand new bridge and on off ramps. So they're building a brand new interchange with the Muskogee Turnpike and a road from State Highway 51 over to the Muskogee Turnpike. And this is happening in Coweta, so the kind of the northeastern part of the state, just south of Tulsa. And statute says that all connections with the turnpikes are supposed to be paid for by the Turnpike Authority. But yet here we are with ODOT using our tax money for an OTA project. And so back to 1309, Senate Bill 1309. Would ODOT need to go back to the legislature and ask for more money? And that could be, allocated for education or something else where it's probably needed more. But instead, the legislature said, okay, no problem. We'll give ODOT $20 million more per year in perpetuity. And then look what ODOT does with that money. State statute says ODOT does not have to spend any money on turnpike projects, and yet here they are. This is just one example of a project. This is just one project where they're spending millions of dollars that should be OTA funding this. But then you've also got Indian Hills and I-35. They're funding that at the tune of $33 million. So just one project that ODOT is spending our tax dollars on an OTA project would be more than sufficient to cover what they're actually asking for from the legislature in this. But if these are two projects that we're looking at, one's 33 million, and so far we've only found 16 million on this, but I bet you could imagine that's probably going to cost more than 16 million. How many more millions of dollars is ODOT spending on OTA projects? So they will tell you all day long that ODOT is the tax supported highway and that OTA is funded solely by bonds and the people who drive those roads. The only people that are paying for tolls are the people who choose to drive on the turnpike. But that is not true because as you can see right here, this project plus the Indian Hills I-35, 40 something million dollars of ODOT tax money going to a turnpike project.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. And I thought, surely they'd clearly delineate the two pots of money, but we've learned over the past 4.5 years that there's lots of things that are muddied. And the one thing that we've been really working on is eminent domain reform. And I pulled up the picture that Kelly showed me earlier. You can see that house right that's surrounded by roads on three sides, and they're not, and the yellow is the right of way, and they're not taking that house. So literally the right of way is what, 2 feet off the corner of that house?
Oh, it's like 8 or 10 feet or something. It's ridiculous.
It looks like that. Yeah,
super close.
It's so close. I just think that this is ridiculous. And our job, okay, so we're trying really hard to stop these turnpikes, and we hope we're successful. But if we're not, we need to bring to light and show everybody what they're doing to the people of Oklahoma so that somebody, either the judicial system, the legal system, or the legislature will wake up and strengthen our eminent domain laws, because this is completely unethical. Now, and that's what the Attorney General Drummond told us when we met with him 4 years ago. Well, Amy, you need to know that while things might be unethical, I can only indict people when it's an illegal move. And I said, okay, we have such bad laws in Oklahoma. We have such weak laws, first of all. And second of all, no one seems to be super interested in pursuing white-collar crime. So how would you like the citizens to fight back besides a revolution? Because we don't have as much firepower as the government. And so it's almost too late for that kind of thing to happen. But, it's super frustrating to watch all these people get their their property taken, or at worst, this is worst, being left within 8 feet on a major interchange on a turnpike and an access road. I can't even imagine. Is there sound barrier walls going up? Are they going to block the lights from all the headlights? And, oh, by the way, remember I said on the last podcast a couple weeks ago that they're putting up all these new overhead lights. So now their entire property is going to be spotlighted. They're gonna have to use blackout curtains because they're gonna just see light all the time. It's ridiculous, and I wish that somehow we need to make these small clips and get them out into social media so that legislators and everybody else can wake up and say, "Oh my gosh, this is just not right." And you're right, they are criminals because they continue to get away with things because the legislators and the legal system just accepts their campaign donations and keeps their mouth shut and doesn't stand up and speak. And I think silence is complicity. Everybody's out there talking about data centers and windmills and solar power and Humanor. And I agree that those things are all bad, but where's everybody talking about turnpikes?
Yep.
It's gross. And I bring that up with all the legislators. I'm like, I agree with you about turnpike, or I agree with you about no solar power, no solar farms, no wind farms, no Humanor, but do you agree with me that there should be no turnpikes? And they said, well, we can't say anything about that. It's just too much of a cartel, and that's unfortunate. We need multiple people with backbones because I think the people are ready to revolt. If you looked at the Republican primary, Kelly, there's like 11 people in every single race running to get into office because they're just sick of what's happening. But I'm gonna put out a Substack with Kelly's help on this particular topic, so you can just read about it and read where all the funding's coming from. They make it pretty hard to dig down, but Kelly's a fantastic researcher, so she found all this stuff out. So we want you to know, we want to put it down for posterity's sake, and in the hopes that someone with ethics and a backbone is going to come in office this election year and be able to do something about it. But what after State Senate Bill 1309 and the Muskogee? This is the race. So what did we talk about? Oh yeah. The legal stuff. Let's talk about legal stuff. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to remove this. I have Substacks half started. So we have some good news for you. Good news is always good. We got a bill passed about, 3 years ago in 2023. It was House Bill 2263, and Danny Sterling ran it for us. He's up for re-election, so he's been a big friend to us. We had a couple policy statements when we first started, and the first one was that the same person should not be in charge of the OTA, the Secretary of Transportation, or ODOT, and we got Tim Gatz to resign from the OTA and the Secretary of Transportation until Governor Stitt reappointed him as the Secretary of Transportation. And then we said, you know what? The governor shouldn't have all the control over the board members of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. So we ran a bill that said, I gotta pull it up. I have so many tabs open. Let's see. We ran a bill that changed the way the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority Board was appointed. So originally it said, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority shall consist of the governor, who shall be a member ex officio, and 6 members to be appointed by the governor by and with the consent of the Senate. The appointed members shall be residents of the state and shall have been qualified electors therein for a period of at least 1 year next preceding their appointment. And then it says 1 member shall be for District 1, District 2, District 3, etc. Well, we didn't really think that it was okay that the governor got to appoint all 6 members, so we wanted to share the love. So we changed it to where the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority shall consist of the governor, who shall be a member ex officio, 2 members appointed by the governor, 2 members to be appointed by the speaker, and 2 members to be appointed by the Senate. And then we got sued over that because the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority thought that that was unconstitutional. So, let's see, in early 2024, in January of 2024, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority filed a lawsuit in the Oklahoma County District Court, and Judge Anthony Bonner was assigned. And if you want to look that up, we'll put it in the comments, and it's case number CV-2024-72. And the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority was suing the state legislature. And in it, they said that it was unconstitutional because of separation of powers, and that they should revert it to just being the governor to the appointment. And thankfully, the judge finally, just recently, in April of 2026, he said the following. He said that upon reviewing and taking under advisement the opening brief of petitioner OTA in the matter of the constitutionality of House Bill 2263, along with all replies, briefs, exhibits, and materials submitted thereto, and upon consideration of arguments of counsel at the hearing, the court hereby makes the following ruling in accordance with the rules for district courts of Oklahoma. The court finds that House Bill 2263 is constitutional, and petitioner's challenge is hereby denied. That's great. So that's good. That means it stands. And he went through, and I'll put this in a Substack. He went through and said that the court finds that the legislature did not run afoul to the separation of powers provision, nor act ultra vires in enacting House Bill 2263. Further, the petitioner has failed to demonstrate that House Bill 2263 is clearly, palpably, and plainly inconsistent with the Oklahoma Constitution and or statutes, and as such, the court finds that House Bill 2263 is constitutional, and the petitioner's challenge is hereby denied. So more than 2.5 years later, the courts sided with us, and I'm taking bets right now on if you think they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court. Because every time they lose in district court, they always appeal. But I thought that the judge's reasoning, and he actually cited a set of 4 criteria from the Oklahoma Supreme Court in deciding separation of powers issues. And so the Oklahoma State Supreme Court has a pretty, I think, foolproof, or not, I don't know foolproof, but it's a pretty strong ruling already from 2002 that what the separation of powers is supposed to be. And so this judge cited all of those criterion and said that 2263 is constitutional. So good job, everybody. And thank you, Danny Sterling. And thank you, Judge Bonner, for having intellectual honesty. And now we just wait to see if it gets appealed. And I'm not sure how long. I thought it was 30 days, to be honest. And this was levied on April 13th. So it's May 14th. But I don't know. The OTA doesn't follow laws, so I'm not sure if they're going to appeal it or not. We'll keep you posted. But that's a big win for us.
For now.
For now. We did win the Open Meetings Act violation case too for about 6 months until it got appealed to the state Supreme Court. So we're hoping that this stands.
Well, maybe we should talk about the other district court case that was heard a week or so ago.
Yes, let's do that. So that was, I should open up that Substack. So I don't know if you remember this because it's been a while, but back in January, I wrote a Substack, and there was 4 legal cases against the OTA, and it was a follow-up from one I had written last July on 2 cases, and one of those cases was filed in Rogers County, in the Rogers County District Court, and that case number is CJ-2025-357.
And I just dropped a link in the comments
Cool.
to the docket, so you can follow along there.
And let me see. What that said was that it aimed to make the 14-mile stretch of the Will Rogers Turnpike between Catoosa and Claremore toll-free, and to force the OTA to repay decades of illegally collected tolls from Oklahoma drivers. So what happened was that in 2004, the legislature passed a law that said because the ODOT did not have the funds to build some bypass around Catoosa, that the OTA would make that 14-mile stretch of their road free for the residents of that area. And they didn't. And so now, 21 years after that law was passed, the former legislator, Taylor Stratton, filed a lawsuit and said, pay us back. Because I was the legislator who ran that bill, and I got that put in, and both ODOT and OTA wanted that bill, or it wouldn't have got put through. Why haven't we done what we were supposed to do? And in December of 24, Justice Sue Nye denied the OTA's motion to dismiss. And we went like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then in January of 2026, both OTA and ODOT filed a joint motion to certify for what's called interlocutory review, which is really difficult legal speak to mean it's an appeal before the case is finished. So they were asking the judge to officially allow an immediate appeal to the Oklahoma Supreme Court to rule on a legal question regarding the funding mechanism before the case continued further in district court. So they were not asking the judge to reconsider her denial of the motion to dismiss, but they were asking her to allow them to go to the state Supreme Court for a ruling on whether or not that 14-mile piece of the Will Rogers was supposed to be part of an appropriations from the legislature that has since lapsed. And so they said that it was unconstitutional and that the state Supreme Court had to rule on the constitutionality of that one legal issue before that they could continue with discovery and the district court case. Now, the judge could have said, no, sorry, let's keep going. But she said, yes. So now they've taken their argument to the state Supreme Court, and this just happened. This was last week, right? May, the first week in May. And Justice Sue Nye, who we thought was going to uphold the law with intellectual honesty, just passed the buck to whoever's next. And I don't know. I shouldn't be so surprised. Really, I shouldn't be, but I am always, that people don't do the right thing. So that's where that is. So we've got lots of things going on. And my microphone won't stay up. But we hope that the Supreme Court will maybe do the right thing and kick it back down to district court so we can keep going. Because there is no way that OTA and ODOT put that law in place for no reason, and they probably got it through in 4 weeks. So why are we not following the law? But they have some high-powered lawyers. They didn't use the Attorney General's office this time. And so we'll see how long that takes. But I thought that was pretty interesting that it totally could have gone through, but they said they're going to allow it to go through. And I'm going to write a little bit more about that because I just read that the other day. And I had to look up a lot of words because I didn't know what all the legal words meant. But I'll try to make it understandable so you can understand the game that the OTA is trying to play with the legal system. But I think that was what we wanted to tell you about. But specifically, we wanted to talk to you about the Royal Bavaria event that's coming up on Sunday, June 7th from 5 to 8 p.m. Oh, can everyone hear me? I guess no one can hear me. Can you hear me now? You can't. One second. Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Kelly, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Nothing? Okay. I don't know what's going on. We're going to go back to... I can hear Kelly. You can hear me before and now. Okay. So you can hear me. Sorry about that. So we have a big time Royal Bavaria family fun night coming up on Okay. I changed my microphone again. Hopefully that's better. And we've got a German buffet and live music and lots of games and some fundraising events on Sunday, June 7th from 5 to 8 in the beer garden. So bring your friends, bring your family. Come on out. It's come and go. You don't have to stay the whole time if you can't. If you need to take takeout, you can come grab takeout and take it home. But every dollar that we spend on our buffet, Andy, the owner of Royal Bavaria, has been a fantastic friend and supporter of us since the very beginning. And he knows how important it is to stand with your community, because if you don't, when you need help, you know your community's not there. And so he's a big supporter of our cause and for transportation policy that makes sense and that doesn't usurp the private property rights of citizens. And so he's been a fantastic friend and very supportive of us, and he gives us all our money back from that buffet. So come and support Pike Off OTA. We're real close to our lawsuit. Everyone keeps asking, so I'm just gonna put it out there. It's coming. I know because I've seen it. So have the faith that we are doing as much as we can and as fast as we can. And everything that we do, of course, takes money and volunteer time. And so we're always looking for help with social media and for writing and for, even if you just want to be an editor and edit the stuff that I write, so I don't have to, it takes me a long time to write those Substacks, and sometimes I do miss some things. So we love it when people can get involved. And of course the elections are coming up, and a lot of the really good grassroots candidates that we'd like to see get in need some help, door knocking and sign holding and all that. So if you're interested in helping with that, that effort, it takes a lot of time, and we need, I think they always say many hands makes light work, and that's true. We don't want to overextend our volunteers. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you. We really did want to talk to you about that House Bill 2263 win, because we think that's important. And every time we get a win, the OTA is going to come back at us with something else. And so just so you know, we've kind of, we know that we're being successful because they have to pull in the big guns all the time to try to thwart our efforts at eminent domain reform and statute reform of the OTA and debt. They definitely do not want a debt ceiling like the Grand River Dam Authority has, the $1.4 billion we try to put on them. They don't want a debt ceiling. They don't want to pay people the appropriate amount for, well, there is no appropriate amount, to be honest. Eminent domain should be abolished. But since that's not going to happen, because our democracy and our constitutional republic is completely malfunctioning, we need to make sure that we can at least get paid for what the government can do. But I won't be here on Monday again or the next Monday, so we're going to try to do some special events, special podcasts in the middle of the week when we're both available. So keep in touch with us and watch out for those Substacks. And remember, if you're on that southern extension, please do not sell or negotiate right now. I'm telling you, there's going to be a major delay to their steamrolling. And if you give them the property and you allow them to get a foothold, it's going to make it super hard for your community to keep fighting this. So please know that the timeline is not even on their timeline. It's not even on the 2031 timeline. They brought in a whole bunch of right-of-way agents at the last meeting, and they're just shotgunning out into the community to try to get the weakest to fall. And we really want you to stand strong and know that there's no rush. They don't need your property right now. They don't even need it in 2030 or 2031. So they got to worry about the problems that we're going to throw out there on their plate on the East-West connector. They haven't figured those out yet. But they're just trying to go as fast as they can, so no one will want to stop them. And the only way we lose is if we stop. So with that positive note, have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic week, and we're going to try to hop on before the Memorial Day weekend and give you, hopefully we have a big time update next week. So everybody, take care, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Right of Way Report, a podcast by Pike-Off OTA. You can join us here every Monday morning at 10 a.m., where we will bring you updates on legislation, litigation, and landowner information.